Hey, so I want to look at Shopify. So it's ticker symbol SHOP. Uh, right here, we're just going to do the technical analysis. Before we actually go into it, I just want to touch base on where we left off on this one. Right off the bat, we're seeing that it's marked red. So I didn't like it at the price point. Um, but so last time we looked at this was June 4th. At that point, it was trading at 58. We had buy points at 30 and 41 with resistance at 54 and 70. So that makes sense why it was marked red, because it was around a resistance point of 54. But we also noted that it was in a slight uptrend, apparently for about 7.5 months, and that we would buy the dips on this. So let's see if these are still true and accurate, and if anything needs to be updated. So let's just right off the bat zoom in here. We have a couple lines in here. Most notably, we have these orange ones, which I'm gonna make these purple, just to stick with our theme here, where purple's normally like our first trend type line. Then I move to a gold or orange if we see two trends happening kind of at the same time. But so purple, we have this trend line that is still intact. It's been this way since October of 22. So we're gonna add this. Um, we're gonna remove the word slight uptrend. Just say uptrend since October of 22, which is, what would that be? We're now in November, December, January, February, March, April, May, June, July. So 8 months. 8 months. Okay. I don't know. I would have thought it would be, because we had 7.5 months. I would have thought it'd be 9.5 or 10 months, but 8 months. What? October to November to December to January, February, March, April, May, June, July. Okay, so it is 9 months. Okay, so 9 months. We also said to buy the dips on this. Last time we looked at this again was June 4th, which was right here, probably on a Sunday. So 58. Yep, that matches up. So since then, I mean, the price has gone up, but mostly it's just been going sideways. And I think what's happened here is uh, it just went above the trend line. And so it kind of consolidated a little bit, got within the range. Here we are again, did the same thing where it went outside the range on the top side, and now it's consolidating, getting back within that range. Haven't really seen a dip. Like what I'd be looking for is if it was at the bottom of the trend range. So if this one continued to trade sideways for a number of months, all the way to like September, like that's what's interesting about these things is right now the price today at about 61, that's a little bit high for me. But if it was trading at this exact same price in September, and that would basically be the same price, but now we're down here at the bottom of the trend line, I'd probably be like, okay, let's scoop this one up. So just something to think about, and how timing can factor in. But let's scroll out on this one. So right off the bat, what I'm seeing is there's really not that much trade activity at all, really. Between about $54 and $88, this one really just shot right through that like $30 window. It really just popped from 54 to 88 and even into like the hundreds. Then it started kind of consolidating. And then even on the way down, once it started going down from the $100 range It passed through 88, went through 88, got down to 70 very quickly, kind of hesitated there, and then fell right through to 54. And so I think, and again, I'd have to look at their financials to kind of confirm this and solidify that opinion, but at least just on technicals alone, what I've seen before is whenever there's not much trading between price points, so in this case between say 54 and 88, the fact that there's not much trading happening here, uh, one of two things is likely to happen. Either it's just going to gradually fill that gap, like it's kind of doing now, where we're now seeing, uh, it looks like close to 2 months where it's hanging out between 54 and like 64, like that $10 window. It's now filling that gap, and I would imagine it's going to do the same thing from 64 to 74 and then 74 to 84. It's just going to slowly kind of fill that in. That's one scenario. I've seen the other scenario where uh, I would say this is probably a great example how it accelerated through that $30 window so rapidly that when it was pulling back, we also would expect it to just fall right through that $30 window. And it really did. And so here we are again trying to climb the ranks. It's the one train of thought was, oh, it's just going to shoot right through that $30 window again. But it seems like investors are being more cautious, at least with this one. And so we're just going to gradually fill in that gap. And I think this uptrend is going to continue uh, probably until we get back above that 88 point. So I think this uptrend is going to continue for the rest of the year. Again, once we get into the actual financial statements to kind of confirm what they're doing in terms of revenues and net income, things like that. But just technically speaking, that's what seems like is going to be the case with this one. Is it's just going to continue along on this nice uptrend, probably for the rest of the year. Of course, unless something changes or some news event comes out. But otherwise, yeah, I'm just going to be looking for dips on this one. In terms of, uh, well, let's just start updating this. So again, last time we looked at this, it was trading at 58. It's now at 61. Um, if I wanted to buy this one today, I'd be looking for 54 would be the bottom of the range. So I'm just going to add that in. It's not necessarily the main point of interest, but that would be a dip. 54, we kind of had that as resistance. So we picked that point because back here in February of 2020, it hit that point, got rejected, came all the way down to the 30s. And then more recently, in February of this year, also hit 54, was rejected, and now all of a sudden it's through that mark. So there was one point where 54 acted as support, we could say, in March of 22. I'm not sure if that would be enough for me to call it support. What it's doing right now, the fact that it's for about 2 months, 58 might be the new support point because it got above 58, kind of pulled back, but then stopped at 57. So 57, maybe that's the new support for this one. There's just not that much, again, between this gap of 54 to 88. So we're going to kind of have to go with just what we're seeing most recently. So I'm just looking back here. Yeah, 30 was nice. I just don't, based on this uptrend, we're probably not going to get there. We picked 41 because it kind of acted as resistance, but then more recently it was support. We could probably, what I'm going to do is add in a line here. I'm going to make this one like a fair value 0.2, right about where it is. Yeah, we'll just play that. So that might be new support at about 59, 58. I try to kind of split the difference here. You can see we could drop it down to 58 and that would catch the bottom here. Still very early to tell. If this one pulled back further, again, I think what's on the table for this week is, yeah, it could pull back all the way to 54, maybe even lower, and it would still count as being in that uptrend range. Just the way this one's moving, I think if anything, it'll probably trade sideways as a worst case scenario and stay in this like high 50s, low 60s range. And yeah, so I like what I'm thinking. I just don't want to miss out on this one, and that's why I'm kind of going back and forth here. So again, the question is, where would I buy this one? 54, that would be the bottom of the trend, which would count as a dip. So yes. 41, I just don't know if 41 is playable. And then 59 comes into the picture. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to remove 30 because I think we're getting too far away from that to it to pull back to that type of level. 41's even becoming a stretch at this point. So I guess I'm going to remove that one. And then, yeah, we might see 59. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put in 54 and 59. 54 is going to be the bold point because that would be a dip on this one. Resistance for right now would be 64, which would be the top of the uptrend. So let's just put in 64 here. We also had 54, which we can take that off the table. That was a resistance point because it got rejected there back in February. So I'm going to remove 54. And then 70. 70 is another spot where, at least on the way down, it's wanted to go back up, but it was rejected right around 70. So 70 might be a point of like, it might stall out there a little bit. It's just right now it's stalling at around 65, a little bit before there. So I would say 70 is more so the resistance point of interest right now. I don't think that's going to be too much trouble to get over, but I do think it'll, like I said, stall there for a minute. We can update the dates. And then as far as our note, uptrend since October, which is 9 months. And buy dips. That's pretty much all I have for this one. So as far as the rating, I guess I'll give it a blue. Only because, whoops, I messed something up here. I'm going to give it a blue because, yes, it's in that window, so it's not overly priced, but it's not a good deal either. I think the uptrend also is factoring in where, you know, because it's in that window, as long as it keeps going upward, which I think it will continue to do that for the rest of the year, it's should be favorable. So for right now, I'll give it a fair value. Again, ideally for me, I want this one to pull back closer to like 54. Um, but we'll see where it ends up. Uh, Hopefully in August we'll circle back on this one and see just where it is and how we want to play it. Uh, but yeah, that wraps this one up. So just as a quick recap, Shopify right now trading at about $61. Buy points for me are 54 and 59. I'm looking more for the 54. That's why it's in bold. And then resistance is at 64 and 70. 70 is really the mark that we're paying attention to see how it reacts when it gets close to there. But otherwise, it's in an uptrend. Been that way for the past 9 months, going back to October of last year. So we're looking to buy the dips. It's just for some reason it's hanging out at the top. We want it to pull back a little bit and scoop it up at that point. But that wraps this up. So if you have any questions or want to add any insight to, a buy point you might be looking for or a resistance you're looking at, feel free to do that. I'd be happy to read it. Otherwise, please like, subscribe, and I'll see you on the next one.